Okay, Tom.
Moderator Tom Riddell, 523, convener of the Social Care Council. Brother, sister, let me serve you. Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too. Let me hold the Christ light for you in the darkness of your fear. Let me hold my hand out to you. Speak the words you long to hear. These words are as relevant to us in Crossreach today as they were almost 50 years ago when they were first written by Richard Gillard. They speak of building relationships, journeying together, of living through the highs and lows, and of holding on to hope. In the past year, it has been our privilege at Crossreach to journey with over 28,000 people from communities across Scotland and support them to overcome challenges so that they can attain the highest quality of life that they're able to achieve. There have been inevitably some dark days, but there have been many more bright moments. Maggie stands up at the end of our recovery volunteer graduation ceremony and with a huge smile tells us that after 35 years of struggle with problematic substance use, her mind feels clear. She feels good, and she believes that she has a positive future. Pamela, an exhausted wife, beams with pride on seeing the painting her husband of many years and now living with dementia has produced at his Heart for Art group. The image is on display at an exhibition that they are visiting together. A special moment, celebrating an achievement rather than dwelling on a loss. And Chanda, a child with a complex disability, often takes a short break at the Mallard, where he gets to take part in a range of activities which help him to remain as independent as possible. He tells us that he's been going there for most of his life and that he sees the staff team as his extended family. You will get an opportunity to enjoy one such moment later today as our Makaton Choir, who lit up our first Crossreach Carol service at Greyfriars Church in December last year, join us in an act of worship as we commence business this afternoon. They are here to serve you this afternoon, and we trust that you will be blessed by their performance. I could spend the whole morning sharing stories of success like these. Stories of people like you and me, our families and our friends, people often doing ordinary things despite their extraordinary circumstances, and well supported by the people they trust. However, mindful of my limit of 15 minutes, I will simply remind you that you can read more of the everyday extraordinary in our impact report. It's available in a link in section 117 of our General Assembly report. Support from people we trust is of fundamental importance to us all, but at times it can be hard to find. One young woman who attended our counselling service told us about a member of staff that she had been supported by. She said, "She saw me through pregnancy, post-birth, and the loss of my brother. She was so kind, patient, open, and honest. Her levels of compassion and effort to create a connection with me were invaluable at that time and will stay with me forever." The staffing problems in health and social care have been well rehearsed over the past year. CCPS, the umbrella body for voluntary sector social care providers, reported that turnover in the sector had reached 25% in 2023. As a result, recruitment and retention of staff has been a key area of investment for us. Finally, we are beginning to see signs of progress. A move to living wage as the baseline for pay, a new recruitment portal, and some innovative thinking around how and where to advertise have all played a part. But there is no doubt that we've been helped in our task by the welcome collaboration with the new presbyteries, who are now regularly sharing vacancies within their own networks. We are very grateful for that partnership approach, and we look forward to building on the foundations laid through our initial round of meetings to understand where there may be other areas of mutual benefit. We know that one of the remaining barriers to recruiting and retaining staff is the issue of fair work in social care. Last year, we called for faith leaders within the Church of Scotland and in our ecumenical interfaith partnerships to join with us in highlighting the issue to government and to call for change. There has been an incredible response, with over 400 faith leaders signing a declaration highlighting this issue as a matter of justice, fairness, and equality. In the past year, the Very Reverend Sally Foster Fulton, along with Archbishop Nolan, supported by members of staff from Crossreach and the Faith Action Leadership Programme, have continued to engage with Scottish Government in support of other groups within the social care sector. There have been some successes of the campaign, but there remains much to do. The 2023 report, Unfair to Care, provides evidence that the social care workforce now sits at 24% behind their NHS counterparts doing similar work. That's a position which is fundamentally unfair and which needs to change. We will be continuing to campaign on this over the next year and will provide details of how to get involved later on in the summer. Once more, we are grateful for the growing collaboration across the Church on this important issue. While the issue of recruitment is challenging, more challenging still are the conditions across social care as a whole. On a regular basis, we hear of cuts and closure of services, and these cuts affect the support that Crossreach can offer, as they do the services delivered by other social care providers, including local authorities. The type of support offered by social care helps people to recognise the barriers that they face to live a normal life, and to identify solutions, including putting in place the relationships needed which will help them to thrive. It's a type of support which helps prevent family breakdown, enables those living with dementia to continue to live in the communities which they know best, supports those living with physical or learning disability to live in accordance with their choices and aspirations, and is there for those struggling with problematic substance use or with their mental health. These services are high quality, cost-effective, and deliver good outcomes, and they can help relieve the strain on the already overloaded NHS and Scottish Prison Service. Importantly, when offered by Crossreach on behalf of the Church, the services bring people into a direct experience of God's love for them and allow them to explore faith should they wish to do that, whether or not they engage with the Church in any other way. Every day we see the need growing, and every day we are having to turn people away. To date, within Crossreach, we are able to find solutions to keeping most of our services going and investive areas of development. Some through the generosity of strangers, others by thinking about new ways to attract statutory or charitable funding. The Church, through Crossreach, remains responsive to the social and physical needs of our nation, just as it did in 1904 when the Committee of Social Work was formed. And its mission in this area remains an important part of the supportive infrastructure to people in desperate situations across Scotland. People like Maggie and Pamela and Chanda. But we do recognise that at times of great challenge, things need to change. As well as working hard with our partners across the sector to continue to advance the argument for investment in social care, we have to undertake a significant exercise to find out what really matters to those who use our services. We've involved their families, our partners within the Church, more broadly, as well as our employees. The detail is in our report, and this rich information will help us to find a way forward which continues that proud tradition of mission, but also allows us to be less reliant on support from central Church funding. We will be able to update you on our plan later this year, but your prayers, your financial support, volunteering and participation in our Share the Love initiative have already been such a blessing to us, and will remain an important part of that future. Sometimes in seeking to understand the best way forward, it is also necessary to look back. Over the past few months, we've been looking back in order to learn lessons from the recent past as well as from much longer ago. Our Chief Executive has provided evidence to the Scottish COVID inquiry and the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry. Both of these experiences were exhausting and emotional. We are indebted to the team from Crossreach and the Legal Services Department in George Street, who gave such excellent support throughout. At the Scottish COVID inquiry, we gave testimony on behalf of services which bore the brunt of the Scottish Government management of COVID. There was particular emphasis on residential care homes, but we were able to explain how policies affected the organisation as a whole. The Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry was different. In it, a number of ex-pupils of the List D schools at Langlands Park, Gilsland and Ballyconrain recounted their experience of being in care and the abuse that occurred in these establishments. The Chief Executive, who had access to all of the evidence presented, gave an apology on behalf of Crossreach and the Church of Scotland for the circumstances which led to the harm of others, promised to take care of the lessons learned, and highlighted that the Church of Scotland has contributed to the Scottish Government redress scheme as part of the collective responsibility in acknowledging the abuse from the past. I'm pleased to say that the situation is very different today. Dark moments to bright moments. As we collected evidence from those using our services, part of our forward planning exercise, the top 3 words used were happy, safe, and loved. That's a strong foundation for us to build on. And we will continue to listen to those using our services and those supporting them so that we can make good decisions for the future. Looking to the future, I know that the way ahead can look uncertain at times, but the past year has shown us that there is much power in our partnerships as we work together to fulfill the mission of the Church at this time. There is hope, and I trust that the stories you have heard today, and which we'll find more of in our impact report, speak of the presence of an active God in an active church. As I reflect on the past 12 years serving on the Social Care Council and as convener of the Crossreach Board, it's those moments of hope that I will take with me. In situations that once seemed impossible, I've often had the privilege to witness incredible change. I wish the staff and volunteers who carry out the caring work of Crossreach and those who continue to serve on the board, including the incoming convener, Dr. Mike Cantley, every blessing in their task ahead. Moderator, I present the report, and as I am not a commissioner, I would request the Principal Clerk to move the deliverance.
I so move.
Seconded. Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Tom. Now, moving to the report, I'm going to ask for questions at this stage, and then we will move to receiving the report, and then I'll take comments once the report has been formally received. Any questions to the Convener at this stage in the proceedings? It's not come up, but if it is a question, Ian, you're please come and ask. It's on.
Is it on?
Yep. Oh, it's off now.
It's off.
It's on again. It's off.
It's on. Right.
And your name and number, Ian.
Okay. Green Shields 271. Thank you, Moderator. Could I thank Crossreach for all the positive and incredible work they do in addiction and recovery services, saving and restoring lives. And given the recent increase in drug and alcohol deaths throughout Scotland, what more can we do?
Convener.
Moderator, I want to thank the Very Reverend Dr. Greenshields for his question. We've talked in our report about £2.4 million of Scottish Government funding already awarded to Crossreach to increase our residential rehabilitation capacity at Beechwood House in Inverness by the end of the year. This expansion will allow a 46% increase in annual service capacity and will provide benefits to the Highlands as well as the surrounding areas of Moray and the Western and Northern Isles. Of course, this funding is welcome and will save lives. For a while, however, we've been concerned about our capacity to support people when they leave residential recovery programmes and return to the community. Commissioners may be aware that just yesterday, the Drugs Minister, Christina McKelvey, announced that from our Crossreach Recovery Service in Glasgow, that 14 projects supporting those in recovery from problematic substance use have been awarded £3.6 million from Scottish Government's National Mission of Drugs Fund. Crossreach will benefit from that funding, with £336,000 being awarded over 3 years. As a result, we will be able to extend our through care provision to those in recovery with both practical and emotional support, including counselling. We know that this will make a real difference to the lives of those who are leaving rehab, but who would benefit from increased support at a critical time for them. Thank you, Moderator.
Thank you. No other general questions. I'll then ask the Assembly and those online if we receive the report. And online, thank you. Section number 2, I've got notice of a comment coming from Mary Sweetland.
Mary Sweetland, 159. It's actually a comment on the whole report. I wish to compliment the board at Crossreach on their progress on delivering their own net zero strategy, highlighted in section 4.7, and committing the staffing resource to take action to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth. As was highlighted in the Assembly Trustees' report yesterday, plans for implementation across the Church will not happen until next year, if then. But Crossreach have started work on their baseline, anticipating the negative impact of future government legislation on organisations who do not reduce their carbon footprint. Hopefully, moving to net zero will have a positive impact on the balance sheet for Crossreach and open access to further grant funding from Scottish Government. So well done.
I'd like to thank the Commissioner for her comments. Crossreach recognises the global climate emergency and is committed to playing its part in Scotland's national endeavour to end our contribution to climate change within a generation. We're also very aware that the social care sector has a very high energy use. If you've ever been in a care home, you'll understand why I'm saying that. And as a result, we have a high carbon footprint. We've been taking time to consider our responsibilities in that area. We've done an in-depth survey of a number of pilot sites to start to make a proportionate response. We now source a majority of our electricity from zero carbon and renewable resources, and have recently introduced solar PV and air source heat pumps for a small number of our services. Work is already underway, led by our recently appointed Net Zero Officer, to increase the number of our services who can benefit from energy efficiency retrofits, zero direct emission heating systems, on-site renewables, and electric vehicles. The board will consider a net carbon zero strategy at its meeting in June. I can say that because it'll be Mike that'll have to worry about that rather than me. Recognising that an investment in this area, often pulling on external funding, is a win-win situation, enhancing the environments for those who access our services and making a small contribution to the climate emergency.
Thank you. I call on David Kavanagh, one of our ecumenical delegates.
David Kavanagh, 478. I spoke yesterday and remarked that I did not wish to influence the Assembly, which was perhaps somewhat presumptuous in thinking that I might be able to do so. I was, however, assured that that is part of the reason why we are here. Now, the online system for booking asks for comments. It does not include proposals, but I have something that is perhaps in that nature. The report begins 111 with a testimony from a Crossreach recovery volunteer who has been through a recovery process, talking of how wonderful it is for that person to have become a volunteer having been through the recovery process. And that's an important part of the whole walk of rediscovering life in all its fullness.
So,
Is this a comment on the speech? Our capacity to do that is currently threatened, I think, by proposals coming from the Scottish Government to introduce fees for volunteers under the PVG scheme. That proposal is being sold to us as a discount on the full fee, which it is, but given that at the moment volunteer applications for PVG are free, it constitutes an actual increase in the costs of volunteering, whether that is borne by volunteers themselves or by the organisation. And in light of that, and here's my question, moderator, I do wonder if the Assembly might formally wish to express concern around these proposals and encourage Crossreach and the appropriate forums of the Church of Scotland to formally take forward expressions of concern around this proposal. There is a consultation which closes on Tuesday, and I would personally encourage every single member of this Assembly to get onto that consultation, even if you answer only the question about introducing fees for volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't want to answer on behalf of the convener, but I wonder if that's something that we could ask the Safeguarding Committee to take on board. But in terms of protection of vulnerable groups, it's very much in...
Thank you, Moderator. I'd like to thank David for his comment. We are well aware of this challenge, additional cost to our volunteer recovery service. One of the highlights of my year is always going along to our volunteer recovery graduation, where people who have been through drug and alcohol recovery come back. We train them and then they come along and they volunteer, and some of them actually end up being employed. And it's wonderful to hear their stories. What I don't want is for that to be inhibited or to be diminished in any way. We're aware of the consultation that is going on, which David referred to. And yes, I would encourage every commissioner to get on now and respond to that, as well as our Safeguarding Committee.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments coming up on the screen. So if there's no one else wishing to speak, can we move then to section 2, please? Oh, Mary.
Thanks. Just to let the Assembly know that I have prepared a draft response to the consultation that is currently underway in relation to the charging of fees for volunteers. So if anybody wishes to receive a copy of that, which you might use to send in on behalf of your own congregation or on behalf of yourself as an individual, then if you contact me, I'll be happy to let you have that.
Okay, thank you. Section 2 of the deliverance, is that approved? And online, thank you. I've got notice Stanley Okeke wishes to speak. That's for section 3 with a comment. You were there yesterday, that's why I was looking over here. So it's good that you are circulating. Well done.
I want to fill the house. Moderator, I want to speak in support of this motion. Given that after COVID, service users in many care homes have the improved need, the increased need to be supported, and those who support them equally need the support to keep giving their own support. And those who support them need the support. So the chain continues. And moderator, I'm not only asking the House to endorse this projection, but also to support it to thrive because of the need we have in these care homes. I am giving my own volunteering in Cumno Hall in Ayr, and I know the enormous need there to support those who are helping the service users in our care homes. So I will encourage this assembly to endorse this proposal and to also support it to thrive. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you. Erica Wishart.
Moderator Erica Wishart, number 23. Moderator, I'd like to commend Crossreach for their inspiring report. I love that they've been very transparent. They haven't glossed over the challenges that they're facing, but they've also explained to us the solutions that they're finding. And I was very inspired by that. And my own mum was in a Crossreach care home for the last 3 years of her life. Part of that which involved the pandemic and mum having COVID. And I can honestly say she was happy, safe and loved there. So thank you for that. I'd like to highlight the emphasis that Crossreach have placed on valuing their staff and caring for the staff well-being, which, moderator, you also made reference to this morning, and including spiritual well-being. I've now worked in the health and social care sector as a hospice chaplain for 3.5 years, and I know only too well that unless we care well for our staff, then there is no service. We cannot look after other people if our staff are burnt out. And that spiritual care is at the heart of that. We need to give the best care to our staff. And I'm very fortunate that my employers, St Columba's Hospice Care, also have the care of their staff and the well-being of their staff as a very high priority. So I'm well looked after. But I'm especially impressed by the progress that Crossreach have made, and I refer to section 1.3.5 in recruiting chaplains. It seems like no time since I heard you were exploring this idea, and suddenly to read in the report that you now have 4 chaplains and a potential 5th is very exciting for me as a chaplain, and I absolutely applaud you for that. I have a wee question at the end, or maybe it's a big question, I hope it's not, sorry. But the question I often get asked in discussions about chaplaincy with organisations who are looking for information is, how do you fund the posts? I'm currently recruiting a volunteer chaplain, a second one, and it's a lot of work to recruit and train. And I just wonder whether the chaplains referred to in this section are staff or are they volunteers? And if they're staff, how do you get the funding for those posts? Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Our chaplains are recruited through the Scottish Workplace Chaplaincy Scheme and are actually volunteers, so they don't actually cost us anything. I'm very grateful to Stanley and to others who have been involved in this. Thank you.
No other notices of people wishing to speak. Can we move then to section 3? Is that approved? And online, thank you. Section 4. And online, thank you. Section 5. And I've got some questions. Firstly, I'm going to hear from Rory MacLeod and then Andrew Sarrell.
Tapalive a Voderater, a Cloch, Keher a Hun, a Shach, Cleth Ellen E, a Gaeltoch agus na Hínse Gaul, MacLeod 417, Highlands and Hebrides. Moderator, with the rising costs of care homes in many parts of the country, these cherished institutions are vanishing at an alarming rate. And not so many years ago, we lost Bumor on the Isle of Skye, which was a key part in the network of care for our senior citizens. And I'm wondering if Crossreach has any advice for those of us operating in parts of the country where we are seeing our care homes having to close because of the requirements imposed upon them. And the implication of these closures are that some of our frailer citizens are having to move ever further from the places of their birth, where their circles of friends and family reside. And that's very distressing at that stage in their lives. And indeed, whether Crossreach has a strategy or is developing a strategy to cope with that situation. I confess that I haven't served notice of this question, so I'm not expecting an immediate reply, but perhaps an indication that one will be forthcoming in due course. Thank you.
Convener.
Thank you for your question. There is no doubt that the social care sector is in crisis. We see it all over the place. I know in my own locality, West Lothian Council have closed all their own their own care homes. So the question is, where do people go? And private providers are not the solution, especially if you can't self-fund. So we know that it's an issue that we're all having to cope with. And that's the environment that we're operating in. We're happy to discuss particular situations that will be different in each area. And as part of our presbytery collaboration, the plan is that we will discuss with presbyteries, is there a way forward? Is there a solution that we can find together? But I fully sympathise with the sentiment expressed.
Okay, thank you. Andrew Starr, and then it will be Sally Foster-Fulton. There you go, it's working.
Oh, thank you. Sarl 236, moderator. I would like to ask the convener if he could make some comment, perhaps of encouragement towards what happens in parishes up and down the country to do things which are sort of informal social care. I think in terms of projects which have grown up out of warm spaces which perhaps came into about at the cost of living crisis. In my own parish where I act as locum, I've become a soup maker for a Friday afternoon gathering of people, which provides a safe space to come to do some crafts or play some games. They've stopped doing Scrabble because I kept winning. And also, encouraged by the local community policeman, I have taken back to playing football on a Friday night with children some 60 years younger than myself, and ways to keep people from getting into trouble. Part of that was that the children would go into a local scheme, set fire to a bin so that they could watch the police and fire engines. Now they play, or have played, football with the police and the fire services as ways of showing that they are upsetting human beings. Could the convener perhaps encourage work like that goes on in parishes and in communities?
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm glad that you've managed to find a niche making soup, but I'm hoping the Scrabble's not the modern version of Scrabble that has been brought out, but I'm sure you... We recognise that there are lots of local initiatives going on, and they're all very commendable, and we would support them. And where we can, we'll collaborate with them. Again, through the Presbytery consultation, we'll try to find ways of supporting you. The Share the Love campaign has been part of that as well, where we've not only been looking for sharing financial, but also sharing support. But our report would not in any way want to diminish the fantastic work that's being done out there by all congregations in different ways. But thank you for your question.
Thank you. And Sally.
Foster Fulton 536. A comment and then just a follow-up question. First, I have had the privilege over the last 12 months of visiting Crossreach projects across Scotland, and I want to say to the Assembly, I have never been so inspired in my life by the dedication, the love, the commitment, the consistency of the people who work with us in Crossreach. I visited Heart for Art, where a wonderful woman who is completely nonverbal was able to express herself beautifully through art. That wouldn't happen without Crossreach. Vulnerable young people feeling affirmed and having a path to follow wouldn't have happened without Crossreach. Visiting a graduation of folk who had struggled with addiction who were now going to be volunteers, and the pride and the change and the empowerment in them. It wouldn't happen without Crossreach, and it wouldn't happen without the people who have dedicated themselves to working with the most vulnerable people in our country. Having said that, there is a crisis in recruitment and retention in our projects in Crossreach because people are not being paid fairly. So I would encourage, Crossreach and the Catholic Church in Scotland and the Church of Scotland together are pushing the Scottish Government to promise and at least give a timeline for fair pay for social care. So I would encourage you, whatever you can do, I mean, sometimes we say, oh, it's terrible that this is happening, but whatever you can do personally to push, to advocate, to highlight. 86% of the people working for Crossreach in social care are women. 86%. They're also not unionized, so they have no formal way of raising their voices. So it's very easy for them to get lost in the shuffle. My follow-up question after a commendation of thank you so much for everything that you do is what more can we do as individuals, as congregations, as presbyteries, as the Church of Scotland, to advocate with you on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you for your comments. First thing I would ask you to do is pray. We value your prayers for our services. You can find it on, there's an app you can download which allows you to identify which service we're suggesting you pray for. We have a prayer diary, so never underestimate the power of prayer. Something else you can do is lobby your MSP and your MP, probably your MSP for Fair Work for in Scotland. So, you know, the Fair Work report has come out. Get a hold of that and lobby your MSP to get that moving along. The National Care Service, the Feely report came out 3 years ago. Nothing's happened. We keep hearing about being kicked into the long grass. It's going to be costly, but if we don't do something about it, the whole care system is going to collapse. So these are things that you can do practically. And hopefully, through our presbytery collaboration, we'll be able to identify things for each area to be, because it'll all be different wherever you are. The issues will be different, and we'll hopefully be able to identify how best you can be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Present section 5 of the deliverance to the Assembly. And online, thank you. And section 6. And online, and the deliverance as a whole. Let me quote from the website. I was going to say your website, but it's our website. The Church delivers and supports a range of social care programmes in Scotland through its Social Care Council, which operates under the name of Crossreach. As one of the country's largest provider of social services, Crossreach services include care for older people, help with alcoholism, drug and mental health problems, and assistance for homeless people and those with special learning needs. And although Crossreach is part of the Church of Scotland, its range of services are available to people of all faiths and none. The Social Care Council's remit is to offer services in Christ's name and specialist resources to further the caring work of the Church to people in need, such as elderly, children, families, and those with learning difficulties. And the Council also helps to identify areas of need and to guide the Church in pioneering new approaches to relevant problems in society and to make responses on issues arising in the Council's areas of concern. The Church of Scotland, our church, has had a long tradition of providing care and support. We started back in 1869 when the clerk was in primary school. Crossreach employs more than 1,800 staff with an annual expenditure of around 46 million and supports some of the most vulnerable people in Scotland. Tom, you and the team are very much at the heart of the church's work, because that is the church at work. And I want to add in here, the staff have done a tremendous job during a very difficult time, because social care is so underestimated. We've had family experience of this recently. Until we need it, we don't think about it. But what makes social care effective is the dedication and commitment of the staff. And I hope to get the opportunity to thank them personally throughout this coming year. But on behalf of the church, please convey our sincere thanks for all that they do, often in challenging circumstances. And I'm looking forward to seeing the projects, experiencing the projects. And to the Assembly, and I mentioned it earlier, if you haven't already done so, check out the Heart for Art. I haven't done so yet, but I will be doing so, if not at the circulation break at some point today. Tom, you've played an essential role in all of this, supported by your management team, and it's obvious by the addendum written in the papers how much you're respected and liked by the council and staff members, how much you have been appreciated. And I don't know where you got the time to do all this. You know, Presbytery clerk, an auxiliary minister, convener of a large council, thank you, and thanks to Joyce for allowing the church to have so much of your time. And as you step back, please don't rush to fill the gap. Enjoy your dancing, your country dancing, enjoy the golf, and those extra days of rest. You deserve them. On behalf of the church, thank you. Thank you.